Imagine a prison where people don't want to escape, a society where the walls are invisible and the guards aren't soldiers but pleasures. A world where control doesn't come from force, but from comfort and entertainment. This was Aldous Huxley's chilling vision nearly a century ago in his book Brave New World. Unlike Orwell, who imagined a future of oppression, surveillance, and pain, Huxley foresaw a society that would gladly accept its chains, because those chains would feel like silk ribbons. He saw that the future wouldn't be made of chains and whips, but of endless pleasures and distractions. Huxley's insight was simple but devastating. Pleasure can be a more powerful weapon than pain. Pain, after all, awakens people. It creates resistance, sparks revolts, and drives people to demand change. But pleasure, especially shallow, constant pleasure, has the opposite effect. It lulls the mind, numbs the senses, and keeps people from ever questioning their condition. When people are entertained, they don't protest. When they are comfortable, they don't fight. When they are endlessly distracted, they stop asking the deeper questions about life and meaning. This is why Brave New World remains so relevant today. Huxley wasn't just describing a fictional dystopia, he was anticipating the society we live in now. His vision wasn't about chains or torture chambers. It was about golden, trapped-comfortable prisons where people stay willingly because the walls are built from the pleasures they crave. At the heart of his warning lies a frightening truth about power. Rulers no longer need to use force to control people. They can achieve the same, and even greater, obedience through pleasure. Why risk rebellion through violence when you can keep people pacified with entertainment, comfort, and artificial happiness? In Brave New World, people no longer suffer, but they no longer really live either. They are anesthetized, lulled into a shallow existence, where joy is constant but meaningless. Think about modern life. Endless TV shows, streaming platforms, video games, social media, shopping, parties. None of these are inherently bad, but together they form an environment where distraction never ends. Entertainment becomes a smokescreen that hides reality. If pain once drove people into the streets to fight for justice, pleasure now keeps them on the couch, binge-watching another series. Each person lives in their own private bubble of distraction, their own golden cell decorated with whatever they find enjoyable. And here is where the genius of this system lies. It works because people choose it. No one forces you to scroll through your phone for hours. No one compels you to watch another 5 episodes in a row. People do it willingly, because it feels good, because it's easy, because it's comfortable. Pleasure becomes a voluntary prison one, where the prisoners happily lock the doors themselves. The diabolical brilliance of this form of control is that it doesn't appear evil. It seems good, even wonderful. Who wouldn't want to avoid suffering? Who wouldn't want to feel happy all the time? Yet, as Huxley showed, this endless pursuit of pleasure results in something worse than suffering, a kind of living death. When life is reduced to avoiding pain and chasing comfort, people stop growing. They stop questioning. They stop striving to be fully human. What emerges is the greatest factory of all time, not a factory of cars, not a factory of clothes, but a factory of artificial happiness. Modern society has become a machine designed to manufacture fake emotions and empty satisfaction. Just as a factory transforms raw material into products, this system transforms human beings into consumers addicted to shallow stimuli. The process is so subtle that most people don't even realize they're caught in it. Consider how advertising works. It doesn't just sell products, it manufactures desire. It creates needs where none existed. Commercials show happy, fulfilled people using a product, making you believe that the same happiness will be yours if you buy it. But the effect never lasts. The happiness is fleeting, and soon another desire appears. Another product, another promise, another temporary high. The wheel keeps turning, and people keep running inside it like hamsters in a cage. Of course, not every form of pleasure is destructive. Watching a movie occasionally, enjoying a good meal, or buying something you genuinely need isn't inherently harmful. The danger appears when these pleasures become constant escapes, when people lose the ability to be alone with their thoughts, when they can't face boredom or discomfort, when every quiet moment must be filled with some external stimulation. That is when pleasure stops being a gift and becomes a prison. This prison doesn't just shape behavior, it reshapes emotions. When people only chase surface-level pleasures, they weaken their ability to experience deeper feelings. It's like a muscle that atrophies from lack of use. The constant pursuit of shallow satisfaction makes people less capable of compassion, courage, or true love. Everything becomes shallow because nothing is allowed to hurt, to challenge, to transform. And here lies the real danger: predictability. A person addicted to comfort becomes predictable. They always react the same way, seeking more entertainment when they're bored, more comfort when they're anxious, more distractions when they're sad. For those who wish to control society, this predictability is gold. When human beings become machines driven by predictable cravings, power doesn't need chains or guns. It simply offers the next pleasure, and people obey. Huxley's nightmare wasn't about a society broken by pain, but one numbed by comfort. And looking around today, with our endless distractions, shallow entertainments, and obsession with artificial happiness, it's hard not to see that we're already living inside the golden prison he described. The question that remains is whether we will have the courage to see the walls for what they are and whether we will dare to step outside them. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, soma wasn't just a medicine. It was the ultimate tool of control. A small pill that erased sadness, calmed anxiety, and dissolved fear. If you were stressed, you swallowed a dose. If you were heartbroken, you popped another. No matter what life threw at you, soma smoothed the edges. Pain vanished, but so did the human spirit. People stopped questioning, stopped resisting, stopped feeling deeply. They were pacified, content, docile. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. While we don't have a pill called soma today, we are surrounded by countless modern versions that work just as effectively, maybe even more so. The genius of our age is that the drug isn't delivered in one neat tablet. Instead, it's hidden in technology, entertainment, consumer culture, and even medicine itself. Chances are, you've taken soma today without realizing it. Think about social media. It functions almost perfectly as a digital soma. Whenever loneliness or insecurity creeps in, people reach for their phones. Within seconds, they enter a world carefully engineered to soothe and stimulate. A notification appears. A like, a comment, a share. Dopamine floods the brain. Suddenly, the ache of emptiness dissolves into a rush of validation. Funny videos, endless memes, trending dances, all of it works like anesthesia for the soul. But here's the catch. The relief is temporary. When you put the phone down, the original pain not only returns, but often grows sharper. The high wears off, leaving a deeper low. Pornography works in much the same way. It offers instant pleasure without the vulnerability, responsibility, or growth that comes with real relationships. The person doesn't have to face rejection, doesn't have to learn patience, doesn't have to confront their own insecurities. Everything is easy, frictionless, immediate. Yet the price is steep. The more artificial pleasure one consumes, the more hollow real intimacy becomes. Over time, this soma erodes the very capacity for love and emotional depth. Consumerism is another modern drug. Shopping, especially in a world of one-click purchases, creates a quick surge of happiness. Buying new shoes, gadgets, or clothes feels like progress, like self-expression, like fulfillment, but it never lasts. The newness fades, and the hunger returns. Soon, another product promises to fill the same void. It's a cycle of endless desire with no true satisfaction, a hamster wheel disguised as freedom. Even medicine, when misused, becomes a soma. There are, of course, people who genuinely need medication to treat serious conditions. But when pills are prescribed or self-prescribed just to avoid sadness, restlessness, or discomfort, they can become tools of escape rather than healing. Instead of teaching people to face their inner struggles, these chemical shortcuts numb them, robbing them of the chance to grow stronger through adversity. It's not medicine anymore, it's sedation. All these modern somas have one thing in common. They promise to eliminate pain without requiring any real change. They mask problems instead of solving them. It's like putting a bandage on an infected wound. On the surface, everything looks fine. The pain is gone, but underneath, the infection spreads, the wound festers. By avoiding discomfort, we actually make it worse. And here lies the sinister brilliance of the system. The line between desire and slavery is almost invisible. Huxley warned that when pleasure becomes constant, it transforms free people into voluntary slaves. They believe they're making choices, but in reality, their choices are being made for them by algorithms, by marketing, by unexamined impulses. The French thinker Etienne de la Barthe wrote centuries ago about voluntary servitude. He argued that people often choose slavery because it feels safer than freedom. True freedom requires responsibility. It requires saying no to temptations, facing discomfort, and wrestling with truth. That's hard. Slavery, in contrast, offers comfort, predictability, and escape. Who wouldn't want the easy road? The tragedy is that the easy road often leads to the loss of one's soul. Pleasure, then, functions like an invisible chain. Unlike chains of iron, these chains are woven from delightful experiences. They feel good, so the prisoner doesn't even realize they're shackled. Imagine someone addicted to chocolate. They know it's unhealthy. They know it weakens them. But it tastes so good they keep going back for more. Now expand that addiction across all areas of life: sex, shopping, entertainment, technology, and you see the contours of a society enslaved by pleasure. The true danger isn't just external control, it's internal emptiness. Emotional dependence develops when a person loses the ability to be alone with themselves. Silence becomes unbearable. Reflection feels like torture. Every moment of stillness must be filled with some distraction: music, scrolling, food, chatter, noise. The person can no longer generate peace or joy from within. They depend entirely on external stimulation, and that dependence is the essence of slavery. The paradox is chilling. This slavery often looks like freedom. People can do whatever they want: eat, drink, hook up, buy, binge, consume. But here's the secret: they can't not do these things. Their desires run them. When pleasure becomes compulsory, it stops being pleasure and turns into a prison. This leads us to a final warning. Comfort, when taken too far, can be just as dangerous as hardship. Huxley understood that when life becomes too easy, people stop fighting for the things that matter: truth, justice, freedom, love. It's like a muscle. Freedom, if not exercised, withers away. Without resistance, the human spirit decays. Just look around. Political apathy has become widespread. People are more interested in the latest celebrity scandal, the next streaming series, or the newest iPhone than in the decisions that shape their future. Governments and corporations know this. While people are hypnotized by personal pleasures, power consolidates in silence. Laws pass, freedoms shrink, corruption spreads. But no one notices. After all, the game is on, the timeline is scrolling, the party never ends. And so, the prophecy of soma continues not as a pill, but as an entire way of life. Spiritual alienation is another serious problem. People stop asking life's big questions. Why am I here? What is the meaning of all this? How can I be a better person? These questions have haunted humanity since the dawn of time. They are uncomfortable because they demand self-examination, responsibility, and often painful honesty. So instead of sitting with them, people turn on the television, scroll endlessly through social media, or bury themselves in distractions. The silence that once allowed people to wrestle with ultimate meaning has been replaced by the constant hum of entertainment. In losing these questions, people lose their direction. A compass is useless if you refuse to ask where you are going. Intellectual demobilization is perhaps the most dangerous of all. When the mind is constantly fed with shallow, fast, and fragmented information, it loses its strength to think deeply. It is like eating only fast food. It fills the stomach, but never nourishes the body. Similarly, memes, headlines, clickbait, and superficial debates satisfy curiosity for a moment, but starve the intellect of real depth. Soon, thinking itself becomes shallow. People can no longer connect ideas, weigh complexities, or question the assumptions behind what they are told. They confuse being informed with being wise. A flood of data drowns them, but wisdom requires stillness and digestion. And here's the critical danger. When people cannot think deeply, they are easily controlled. They accept narratives, slogans, and propaganda without resistance. Their intellectual muscles have atrophied. Like soldiers who never leave their barracks, their minds are demobilized before the battle for truth even begins. But perhaps you're wondering, is there a way out? The answer, if we are honest, is not comfortable. Huxley once observed something piercing. Truth is rarely pleasant. In fact, truth is almost never comfortable. To encounter truth is to confront the hidden parts of ourselves we would rather deny, the fears, the contradictions, the hypocrisies. It is also to see the brutal realities of the world: poverty, corruption, injustice that we would rather pretend do not exist. No wonder illusion is so attractive. Illusion is like a soft blanket. It shields us from the cold winds of reality. It is comfortable, familiar, and easy. Truth, on the other hand, is like stepping outside on a frosty morning. The air bites, the body resists, but only by stepping outside can you actually move forward. The tragedy is that many people prefer to stay in bed forever, wrapped in the comfort of denial. This dilemma, the real versus the pleasurable, appears in countless daily decisions. It is easier to believe that everything in society will work itself out than to take responsibility for demanding change. It is easier to convince yourself your marriage is fine than to face the pain of addressing its cracks. It is easier to keep pretending you are satisfied at work than to confront the terror of change. Denial feels safe, but it is not harmless. Pain avoided does not disappear. It accumulates, like pressure in a sealed container, until it bursts with devastating consequences. The choice between truth and pleasure is also an ethical one. When someone chooses comfortable illusions, they are not only harming themselves, they are contributing to a culture where appearances matter more than essence, where lies are rewarded more than honesty. Every individual who surrenders to illusion strengthens the collective dream world that allows corruption, injustice, and manipulation to thrive. And this connects to a disturbing fact about how we view our own bodies. For centuries, the body was considered sacred, the temple of the soul, the vessel through which one could experience spiritual transcendence. But modern culture has inverted this. The body is no longer a doorway to something higher. It has become the final destination. It is worshipped as an idol, sculpted, decorated, and consumed not to reveal the soul, but to distract from it. This inversion is dangerous. When the body becomes only a source of immediate satisfaction, it traps the person inside their own physical cravings. They never look beyond hunger, lust, or vanity. It is like owning a beautiful mansion but never stepping outside its gates. You live surrounded by luxury, but you never see the mountains, the rivers, or the vastness of the sky. Hume warned of this illusion. Desires often masquerade as freedom. A person thinks they are free because they follow their impulses, but in reality, they are chained by them. They mistake the ability to indulge the genuine independence. It is the paradox of the dog chasing its own tail. There is movement, frenzy, energy, but no real progress. Schopenhauer saw this even more starkly. For him, desire itself was suffering. Before obtaining what we want, we suffer because we lack it. Once we obtain it, we suffer because the satisfaction fades and a new desire takes its place. And when we lose what we once had, we suffer again. Desire creates an endless cycle of unrest, a treadmill where the prize is always just out of reach. But perhaps the most insidious loss of all is the murder of silence. The modern world is noisy televisions, traffic, endless notifications. But the more dangerous noise is not external, it is internal. It is the endless chatter of the mind, anxieties, fantasies, worries, comparisons. The mind becomes a crowded room where silence is banished. And yet, silence is where true transformation begins. When was the last time you were completely silent inside and out? Interior silence is not emptiness. It is the fertile soil where self-knowledge grows. Mystics across traditions from Christian monks to Buddhist sages insisted on silence as the doorway to truth. Why? Because only when the water of the mind is still can you see to its depths. If stones are constantly being thrown by distractions, desires, and anxieties, the surface ripples endlessly, and the depths remain hidden. To recover silence is to recover yourself. It is to stand apart from the circus of stimulation, and hear your own authentic voice, the one that knows what you truly need, beyond consumption, beyond vanity, beyond illusion. The way out, then, is not more comfort, more pleasure, or more distraction. The way out is courage, the courage to sit with silence, to face uncomfortable truths, to ask the forbidden questions again. It is to rediscover the strength of the spirit and the discipline of the intellect. And perhaps most importantly, it is to recognize that freedom is not the ability to do whatever we want, but the strength to master ourselves so that we are no longer mastered by the world's illusions. Philosophers have long emphasized silence as a path to wisdom. Socrates, one of the greatest minds in history, declared that an unexamined life is not worth living. But what does examining life require? Reflection. And reflection requires silence. Yet how can a person reflect if their mind never stops moving? How can they think deeply if their days are filled with nothing but endless consumption of information, distractions, and entertainment? We live in an era of noise. Not only the external kind, music, traffic, notifications, advertisements, but also the internal kind, mental chatter, worries, fantasies, rehearsed arguments, and obsessive plans. In such a condition, silence feels alien, almost threatening. But this is precisely why silence is powerful. Here's a simple but transformative practice. Begin with just 5 minutes a day without any stimulus. No phone, no music, no television, no book, nothing to fill the gap, just you and your thoughts. At first, you will feel restless. Your mind will demand a distraction. You will want to reach for something, anything, to escape the void. And that discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is proof of how dependent we've become on external stimulation. By observing it rather than obeying it, you are beginning to reclaim your inner freedom. Silence teaches us to endure discomfort, to sit with ourselves without the constant crutch of distraction. But modern culture, as Aldous Huxley warned, is designed to make this nearly impossible. His sharpest criticism of society was that adults were being transformed into big children, infantilized, pacified, and manipulated through pleasures. The infantilization of society Huxley saw with prophetic clarity that modern systems of control do not operate primarily through fear or violence, but through pleasure. By keeping people entertained, fed, and distracted, they lose both the habit and the courage to ask difficult questions. Infantilization is not accidental, it is a deliberate strategy of control. Look closely at the behavior of children. They are easily manipulated because they crave immediate gratification and will do almost anything to avoid discomfort. If you give candy to a child each time they cry, they quickly learn that crying is the way to get what they want. The parallel with modern adults is unsettling. Our societies offer constant satisfactions, cheap food, endless streaming, online shopping, social media validation, not to nourish us, but to pacify us. Each convenience acts as a lollipop to keep us quiet, complacent, and obedient. Nietzsche warned about this long before Huxley. He spoke of the last manna creature who only seeks comfort, safety, and predictability. The last man avoids challenge, risk, and growth. He would rather live a small, shallow life of minor pleasures than embrace the dangerous adventure of becoming fully human. The last man represents a society that has traded greatness for comfort, depth for distraction, and freedom for safety. You can see this infantilization everywhere. People lose their ability to tolerate even minor frustrations. If the Wi-Fi takes too long to connect, irritation flares. If they must wait in line, they despair. If someone disagrees with them online, they feel personally attacked. Every small inconvenience is treated as a major tragedy. This lack of resilience is not only an individual, Weakness is the symptom of a culture that encourages fragility because fragile people are easier to control. The lollipop strategy, the infantilized adult rarely questions authority because they are too busy enjoying their lollipops. Entertainment, consumer goods, and superficial pleasures keep them occupied, while deeper realities, corruption, injustice, exploitation remain unexamined. In this sense, distraction is not just entertainment, it is a political tool. The more we crave instant gratification, the less we resist manipulation. It is far easier to pacify society by drowning it in pleasures than by suppressing it with brute force. Huxley's warning was clear. People will not rebel against tyranny when they are too entertained to notice it, but there is hope. Amid this machinery of distraction, there remains a path of resistance, authentic spiritual seeking. The revolutionary nature of true spirituality, real spirituality, is not about buying crystals, chanting mantras without understanding, or consuming the latest feel-good philosophy promising instant happiness. That is just consumer spirituality yet another distraction dressed in sacred clothing. Authentic spirituality is different. It requires courage, discipline, and an uncompromising willingness to face truth. Why is this path revolutionary? Because it teaches that real satisfaction does not come from external sources. Once a person discovers inner peace, joy, and meaning, they become nearly impossible to control. How do you manipulate someone with consumer goods when they no longer equate possessions with happiness? How do you tempt someone with shallow entertainment when they find more joy in silence, contemplation, or genuine human connection? Carl Jung described the spiritual journey as individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. This is not a comfortable path. It involves facing the darker aspects of yourself, dismantling illusions, questioning beliefs, and walking through crises. But this discomfort is necessary. It is the fire that forges real freedom. Pain, emptiness, and doubt are not enemies of spirituality, they are guides. Pain teaches compassion by showing us our own vulnerability. Emptiness teaches humility by confronting us with the limits of our ego. Doubt teaches depth by forcing us to question superficial answers and seek deeper truths. In this sense, the very experiences modern society tries to shield us from are the ones that make us strong, wise, and free. Pleasure that liberates versus pleasure that enslaves. But let's be clear, not all pleasure is an enemy. The issue is not pleasure itself, but the kind of pleasure we pursue. There is a fundamental distinction between pleasure that enslaves and pleasure that liberates. Enslaving pleasure is addictive, shallow, and isolating. It promises more than it can deliver, leaving emptiness in its wake. Think of endless scrolling, binge-watching, or compulsive shopping. These pleasures disconnect us from reality and from ourselves. Liberating pleasure, on the other hand, arises from presence and authenticity. It emerges from genuine connection, creative expression, and an appreciation of life's simple beauty. The joy of watching a sunset, of listening to silence, of losing yourself in meaningful work. These are pleasures that do not enslave. They do not demand repetition or create dependence. Instead, they deepen awareness, strengthen the soul, and connect us with something greater than ourselves. The pleasure of authentic human bonds is perhaps the greatest of these. When two people truly connect, sharing vulnerabilities, supporting each other, engaging in deep dialogue, a unique joy emerges. This is not the sugar rush of superficial entertainment, but a sustaining nourishment for the spirit. It is the kind of pleasure that expands freedom rather than diminishes it. Choosing the higher path, the question before us, is simple yet profound. Do we choose the path of the last man, pacified and infantilized, or do we choose the path of the examined life, which requires silence, discomfort, and courage? Socrates, Nietzsche, Jung, and Huxley all converge on the same truth. Growth demands struggle. Wisdom demands silence. Freedom demands responsibility. Without these, we remain children, entertained and controlled, lulled into sleep by the soft lullabies of comfort. But when we embrace silence, endure discomfort, and seek truth beyond illusion, we rediscover our humanity. We grow into adults who no longer need lollipops to be pacified, because we have found something far greater meaning, wisdom, and the freedom to live authentically. Artistic creation is another source of conscious pleasure. When a person writes, paints, dances, sings, or creates anything that arises from the depths of their heart, they experience a satisfaction unlike any other. This kind of joy is not about consumption, but about expression. It is the pleasure of giving form to what was once invisible feelings, intuitions, dreams, fears. Creation turns the inner chaos of the soul into something tangible, something meaningful, something that can touch the hearts of others. In this act, the individual feels both free and connected, free because they have expressed their uniqueness, and connected because their work resonates with the shared humanity of others. True art is a mirror of the soul, and every brushstroke, word, or movement is a declaration, but life itself has meaning. But here we arrive at the moment of the most important choice of all. This is the crucial crossroads in the entire reflection. How do we escape the trap of control through pleasure? How can an ordinary person, without renouncing the world or becoming a monk on a mountain, live freely in a society designed to keep them pacified with endless distractions? The answer is not the rejection of all pleasure. To deny joy entirely would be both unnatural and harmful. Humans are not machines, we are beings of emotion, creativity, and longing. The real key lies in awareness. Awareness is the lamp that illuminates the inner theater of the mind. It allows us to step back and observe our impulses before we obey them. It creates a vital pause between desire and action, giving us the freedom to choose consciously instead of automatically. So how do we cultivate this awareness in daily life? First, practice the conscious pause. Before unlocking your phone, turning on the television, buying that unnecessary item, or opening the fridge for comfort rather than hunger, stop for 10 seconds. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? What am I trying to avoid? What feeling am I running from? This simple act of questioning interrupts the spell of compulsion. Often, you will discover that what you thought was hunger is boredom, or what you thought was curiosity is anxiety. This pause reclaimed your freedom one decision at a time. Second, experiment with pleasure fasts. Once a week, abstain from a habitual source of stimulation, be it social media, music, sweets, streaming series, or online shopping. By withdrawing temporarily, you reveal the extent of your dependency. You realize how much of your mood, attention, and identity has been tied to these external pacifiers. More importantly, you strengthen your willpower. Like a muscle, the capacity to choose grows stronger the more it is exercised. What once felt impossible begins to feel natural. Third, cultivate pleasures that require presence. Not all pleasures enslave, some liberate. Walking in nature, breathing in fresh air, watching the changing colors of the sky, engaging in deep conversations with friends, or learning something that expands your perspective. These are nourishing pleasures. They awaken rather than dull. They connect you to life rather than isolate you from it. They demand that you show up fully, with your mind, body, and soul aligned in the present. Fourth, change your relationship with discomfort. In modern society, we are trained to flee from any unpleasant feeling, sadness, boredom, loneliness, or anxiety. Yet these experiences are not enemies but teachers. Instead of silencing them with distraction, try to listen. What is boredom telling you about your unused potential? What is sadness revealing about your unhealed wound? What does anxiety expose about your misplaced values? Often, the very discomfort we avoid is the doorway to self-knowledge. The path of true freedom always passes through discomfort. It is like leaving a heated indoor pool to swim in the vast, cold sea. The first plunge shocks the body, but soon you feel a vitality that no artificial comfort could give. The sea humbles you, awakens you, and reminds you that you are alive. Aldous Huxley left us not just a critique, but a challenge. His warning was clear: beware of pleasures that promise everything yet demand nothing, for they turn strong individuals into docile dependents. His invitation was equally clear: have the courage to seek an authentic life, even if it is harder, riskier, or lonelier than the artificial one. Because in the end, one authentic life full of struggle, growth, and discovery is worth infinitely more than 1,000 hollow imitations. The choice is ours. We can continue sleeping in the soft bed of illusions, lulled by endless distractions, or we can wake up to the fierce and beautiful adventure of being truly human. The path begins with a single, honest question before every pursuit of pleasure. Does this free me or trap me? The sincerity of your answer may become the first step toward your liberation. And once you taste the freedom of conscious living, you will never again confuse comfort with happiness, nor distraction with meaning.